It shocks me that so many hearing care professionals do not know this. Hey guys, welcome back to the DrCliffAuD vlog. This is vlog number 323, and today I want to talk to you about this concept of real ear measurement and how real ear measurement is not best practices. But before I get into this video, do me a huge favor, click the like button. It really helps out the channel. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on, go ahead and do that as well. It's greatly appreciated. So last week, I actually reviewed a comment from someone on a Facebook forum about how their hearing care professional deceived them and basically told them that they were performing real ear measurement when they were not performing real ear measurement. If you want to check that video out, I will go ahead and link that in the description below for you. But today I want to talk to you a little bit more about best practices and where real ear measurement really fits into best practices. So one of the questions that I always ask a student when they're applying to do their externship inside of my clinic is, what are best practices? And oftentimes they'll basically say, well, it's when you perform real ear measurement during a hearing aid fitting with your patients. And I say, that's great. Real ear measurement is definitely a best practice, and it is something that you should be doing with all of your patients. But best practices is so much more than just real ear measurement. Real ear measurement is one of the many best practices that exist out there, and all of these best practices have to be performed with all of your patients in order to achieve a high-level treatment outcome. All right, so let's talk about best practices a little bit more and where they actually come from. So there's research that exists out there that shows that when different procedures and considerations are completed with an individual who has hearing loss, that it will result in an optimal treatment outcome. And until new research comes out that disproves the current level best practices, those are what the best practices are. So for instance, there are a couple different ways to program a pair of hearing aids. You can basically do the first fit settings, where you just enter your audiogram into the manufacturer's software, hit the auto program button, and it basically gives you the programming that you should have. That is definitely better than not entering an audiogram in and just increasing and decreasing overall volume. But then as you go up, you're like, well, is there a way to make sure that someone's hearing better with this level of programming? Well, you could do functional gain testing, where you actually take someone with their programmed hearing aids, put them back in the sound booth, and see if they hear better with their hearing aids the way that they're currently programmed. If they do, you're basically verifying that the programming is giving them better audibility. So that would be another level up above just doing a first fit manufacturer setting. But research tells us that when you do real ear measurement, it gives you an even better treatment outcome with hearing aids. And that's when you have to take probe microphone tubes, stick them inside of your ears, put the hearing aids in on top of those microphones, and then you play a calibrated signal from a loudspeaker in front of you, and then match the amplification curves to the target prescription curves on the verification screen. Like I said, research tells us that you get the most optimal treatment outcome when you perform real ear measurement, which means that it is the gold standard, which means that it is considered a best practice. But best practices are really a series of considerations and procedures that must be completed by your hearing care professional to result in an optimal treatment outcome. That is the definition that I'm looking for when students are doing an interview with me. And when you stop short at just real ear measurement, that is one of many different things that can be done. I'll give you an example. There's a couple other key best practices that must be completed. So recorded speech testing. When you're having your hearing test completed, if they're going to do live voice with you when they're, basically saying, say the word cat or say the word tree, you cannot have the tester speak those to you. You have to do a recorded version of those words. Otherwise, you can get variability in the test results, and it can make your scores look inflated when it comes to your word recognition scores. They should also be performing speech and noise testing. What's the #1 complaint of individuals who have hearing loss is that they can't understand speech in a noisy environment. So speech and noise testing tells us how much separation of speech you need over the background noise in order for you to be able to hear 50% of what someone is saying to you in a noisy environment. The higher that score is in decibels, the worse you are at that. The lower it is, the better that you are. But if we do not know what your signal-to-noise ratio loss score is that you obtain from the speech and noise testing, we have no idea how to counsel you on whether or not you should be using an accessory to have success in that situation, or whether hearing aids properly programmed alone would help you have success in that environment. You also have test box measures. These are essentially the way that we identify if hearing aids are meeting manufacturer specifications. If your hearing aids are mechanically failing, it does not matter if you perform real ear measurement on them. You're not going to hear very well with hearing aids that have 20% distortion. And then you need to have validation outcome measures. So you're actually grading your level of subjective benefit, making sure that when you do all of the objective best practices that it leads to a subjective benefit in the perception of your hearing. Now, I actually created a checklist of all of these different best practices. Now, I should mention here that these best practices are actually created through guidelines by professional organizations. So you have the American Academy of Audiology, you have the American Speech Language Hearing Association, and you have the International Hearing Society. They have all basically looked at all of the research that's out there, and they basically say, hey, here are the best practices. If you're going to be fitting adults with hearing aids, these are the things that you need to do to be considered doing the gold standard with your patients. But a few years ago, we actually had the minimum standards published by the Audiology Practice Standards Organization. The crazy thing is here is that a lot of these best practices that have been identified by these other professional organizations are also the minimum standard. So for instance, reeler measurement is not only the best practice, it is also the minimum standard for a hearing care professional. Test box measures, we also call this electroacoustic analysis. Not only is that the best practice, that is also the minimum standard. Same thing with speech and noise testing, same thing with recorded speech testing. All of these different things that your hearing care professionals should be doing in order to follow best practices, if they're not doing those, then they're not even meeting the minimum standard anymore. So the easiest way that I've found to make sure that you actually understand what these best practices are is to go to my website, hearingup.com, and downloading my best practice checklists. These checklists are what HearingUp members that are inside of my professional network will follow when they're actually fitting you with hearing aids. It encompasses everything from the testing all the way to the follow-up requirements in order to be following comprehensive audiologic best practices. Is reeler measurement on there? Of course it is, but it is literally like 3 check boxes of 100 check boxes that hearing care professionals have to make sure that they're doing with you. So while I appreciate that individuals do identify reeler measurement as a best practice, it is only one of many best practices that are out there. And if you want to make sure that you're hearing your absolute best, you have to make sure that your hearing care professional is not only providing you with reeler measurement, but also providing you with every single other best practice that's out there. Because if they're not, just doing reeler measurement is not going to guarantee that you're going to be hearing your absolute best. And if that's the goal that you have for yourself, you've got to make sure that they're doing everything else as well. Now, I should also mention that just because your hearing care professional performs reeler measurement does not mean that they're performing it the right way. I often get people telling me, oh, well, my hearing care professional, they do reeler measurement, so that means that they're doing a good job. And I'm like, well, maybe they are doing a good job, but maybe they're just doing the recording of the reeler measurement and they're not actually making adjustments appropriately to match you to your prescriptive targets for average, loud, and soft level speech, and making sure that your MPO settings are not set too high or too low, and running a remeasure of reeler measurement after they've made a variety of different changes based on your subjective input. But I want to know what you think. Do you think it's important that your hearing care professional follows comprehensive audiologic best practices, or do you think that reeler measurement is good enough? Let me know down in the comment section, and I'll see you next week.